At this point, walking into Microcenter makes me feel like I'm Karen walking into a Walmart during Black Friday in 2011. Replace the $5 toasters with heavily marked up graphics cards, and that's where we are right now. So of course, I decided to go without a graphics card right now. Back in 2018, when Bitcoin mining was hitting its peak, I decided to sell my GTX 1080 Ti for a profit. I bought it for $700 with the intent of keeping it and decided to sell it for $1,200. I then had no problem finding a graphics card to replace it, I just had to look a little harder to find one at MSRP. Now fast forward to this year, I had an RTX 2080 that I bought for $400, and when prices started rising, I thought I'd be smart and sell it much like I did a few years ago with my 1080 Ti. The problem is, I'm not smart, so here I am with the GTX 760 to go along with my Ryzen 5900X. Yes, I'm using a GTX 760 in the computer I use for work. The same GTX 760 I bought while I was in high school, and I'm now in my 20s. I'm also in between cameras right now, so I decided to use the graphics card money to get my first and only lens for my temporary camera. This got me thinking, maybe I could get a cheap graphics card that's still somewhat better than this GTX 760, and use that until scalpers calm down. That led me to discover that literally everything is ridiculously inflated right now, so while nothing under $100 would really be an upgrade for me, I thought it might be interesting to see what I can find. So, after a trip to Microcenter and a week or two of looking through Facebook Marketplace, I've gathered 4 graphics cards that are representative of what you can find for under $100 on the market right now, at least in my area. So, let's get into it. After going to Microcenter and seeing what they had in stock, which was like nothing, I ended up with 2 cards. First, let's look at the less terrible option, the AMD RX 550 2GB. And yeah, before you go after me for buying such a bad value graphics card, even if I wanted to go for something like a GTX 1650, I couldn't because nothing was in stock. The RX 550 cost me $55 as it was open box, and they had just 2 left in the store, including this one. Released in 2017, this was never a good card, being just $20 cheaper than the RX 460 and being significantly slower. It's a little better than the GT 1030, which also isn't a great card, especially not anymore, though Microcenter did have that in stock when I was there, for $80 to $100. Having just 2 GB proved to be pretty annoying as well, as it artificially limits the card's potential. Well, here are the benchmarks. Up next, we have the NVIDIA GT 710 2GB DDR3. Please do not buy this card, but if you must, at least get the DDR5 version. These are remarkably going out of stock somewhat often here. Released in 2016, this card was never that great. It had an MSRP of $35 and was a bit slower than a GT 730. It is 2GB, which for once is plenty for a card this slow, and can pull off a fair amount of games as long as you keep it older than 2015 and have very low expectations. Here are the benchmarks for that. Up next to the used cards, things are looking a lot better here, but still not that great. First, let's look at the cheaper option, the GTX 580 1.5GB. This card is 11 years old, but has aged somewhat well. It's somewhere between a GTX 750 Ti and a GTX 1050 in terms of raw performance, which isn't too terrible, especially considering I found one for just $30. That being said, try to find the 3GB version if you're going to get this card, because having 1.5GB of VRAM limits you out of most new games. And onto the GTX 960 2GB, which I bought from someone who told me it was a 4GB, and I believed them for some reason. This card cost me $60, and while under normal circumstances I'd go for the much faster GTX 970, that has since hit $150. Released in 2015, this was a card I was actually considering at the time, though thankfully I went for the 970 instead. I'd say this card can play most new games, though the 2GB limit really isn't helping. This card really wasn't a great value even for 2015, though if you can find it for $60, then maybe go for it, as it's not like there's many options under $100 right now. Here are the benchmarks. Now that I was done testing these cards, I thought it'd be a good time to put them up for sale. I could have returned the RX 550 since I bought it less than 30 days ago, but times are tough and I'd rather be part of the problem. I was able to sell the RX 550 for $100, the GTX 580 for $50, and the GT 710 for $60. Those prices are universally more than I paid, with the RX 550 going for double. The key takeaway here seems to be to buy the GTX 1060 or RX 580 4GB if you can raise your budget to $150. Also, you should probably buy right now or wait until the summer when things allegedly will get better, because it seems to be getting worse right now. Microcenter is now selling the RX 560 and HD 7750 for almost $200, when just a few weeks ago they had an RX 580 for around that price.